Hello, hello, book lovers. We are live. I am your host, Jack and the Book Stack, here with Katrina Brown. Hello, Katrina.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us for episode 5 of the Biblio Files. So excited to have you here and get to ask you some bookish questions.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. I've been so excited to chat with you. I've been watching your channel for so long. I think I was watching your videos before I even got started on BookTube. And I love your energy and the various books that you read. So thank you for all the horrific inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
Before we dive in, could you tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel? For those that maybe haven't stumbled across your videos yet, what kind of videos can they expect to see on Katrina Brown?
Horrifying is pretty right. I feel like I am very much a horror reader. I will read a thriller here and there and some sci-fi every now and then, but it's pretty rare. I mostly just do some vlogs and your typical booktube staples. Right now I'm a co-host for Garb August, which is hosted by Ollie from Criminali and a bunch of other people. So I'm very much in the mindset of reading trash. So I've been reading a lot of Kuntz and John Saul and stuff. So this week especially. So I feel like my brain is just like kind of melting a little bit. But I did start a book club very recently, the Reaper Book Club, Life's Short Read Horror. And for this month, we're reading Suffer the Darkness by Yolanda Sepsos. It's a little novella. Yeah, every book that I choose is going to be like very short, under 200 pages. And my co-host is Kitty from Spicy Cats Reads.
Awesome. And so you do the book club, you choose one every month, right? And then there seems to be a live show. You just mentioned your co-host. I joined for the first one, Queen of Teeth.
Right? Yes, Queen of Teeth.
That was a fun pick. How did you find that book? I can't remember your explanation, how you heard of that book or how did you pick that one for your first book club pick?
So I actually read The Worm and His Kings by Haley Piper, and I've read a couple of her other books too. So I was very familiar with it. So I was excited to read Queen of Teeth, but I did pick it for Michelle's book club, the Pyramid Book Club that she does with Lexi. I picked that as one of the choices. So I think it was like Goth and The Queen and Her Teeth and A Black and Endless Sky. And of course, The Black and Endless Sky won and nobody liked it. So it was like, great.
And I think for Queen of Teeth, most people seem to really enjoy it. It seemed like a lot of people were rating it like 4 or 5 stars that were like commenting in the live show. So
yeah, I was happy about that. And I feel like the discussion was really good too with it. So
yeah, definitely. Hey, Luna's Library. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining. All right. So if you are new to the Biblio Files, what we're going to do is we have 10 questions that I am going to ask Katrina all about some of her favorites, some of her favorite books and tropes and reading habits, and go through and discuss those. We'd love to hear from all of you in the comments if you have any answers to these questions or additional questions for either of us. Would love to hear those. And then after the 10 questions, we have 5 bookish would you rathers that Katrina has not seen. So they will be really tough, hopefully. We'll see how that goes. But we'll start it off easy with the first question. That is, what are you reading right now?
So right now, this week is Paperbacks from Hell and Vintage Smut, but if I'm going to read smut, I'm going to not read vintage smut, whatever that is. So I'm reading Lizzie Borden by Elizabeth Engstrom. This was published in 1991, I believe, and it is like a fictionalized Lizzie Borden story, and I'm really liking it, actually. It feels like I'm watching one of those like reenactment movies or something. Like, it's very dramatic but atmospheric and slow and stuff. So I'm enjoying this. And then I also started Stage Fright This is by Garrett Boatman, and I forget when this was published, but it is the Paperbacks from Hell. This is the reprint Valancourt edition, and I think it's about possessed musical instruments or something, or like cursed musical instruments. Because I just read the introduction by Will Erickson, who helped like republish these or wrote Paperbacks from Hell with Grady Hendrix and stuff. So it gave me those vibes. Usually I don't read his stuff until afterwards, but I was like, oh, I'm going to read it. And then I was like, I think I just know what happens in this book now. So
Possessed musical instruments. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. So that's got to be interesting.
I have never heard of it either, so I'm very excited about it. I've heard good things about it, so I hear this is like one of the good paperbacks from Hell because it's so hit or miss. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Hi, Sarah. Those are some pretty fun reads. Well, we kind of talked about it when we were talking about your channel, and so you said you read a lot of horror and some thrillers here and there. But would you say that you have a most read subgenre in horror?
My most read is probably, I don't know, because that's really interesting. I was so prepared to say like, oh, it's cosmic, but it's like, do I read a lot of cosmic horror? That's my favorite.
Yeah, favorite and most read tend to be they could be different.
Yeah, I would say my most read for this summer, because I know I read like 10 or 12 slashers back in June, so it might be slashers right now that I read a lot of. And the Good For Her Unhinged vlog I did last week ended up kind of being more slashery, serial killer-esque stuff happening. So probably the slasher subgenre.
That seems correct to me for like the videos I've seen that you've done. They seem very slashery. The Good For Her one was definitely my favorite because who doesn't love those?
Yeah, those.
Hi, Kat.
Hey, Kat.
Thanks for joining. All right, this is a book lover's most difficult question. What is a favorite book of all time? Because you probably have like a dozen, right? But
yeah, that's really tough. I usually say The Shining. I know you're wearing a Stephen King shirt.
I know, in your honor, right? In your honor, I wore a horror t-shirt, my Stephen King shirt.
Yeah, I love The Shining. That book really scared me, and I really do love the movie. I like how different both are. I think they're really effective. But I think I have a new all-time lifetime favorite book, and I did pull it off the shelves because I did see these and I was a little prepared. Is Blackwater by Michael McDowell. This is a family saga style. It's a little bit of fantasy in it, but I feel like it's just like cosmic horror in it. Yeah, this is like a Southern Gothic tale, and it's broken into 5 or 6 books that were published separately, but this is the bind up I have. But yeah, I keep thinking about this book. This book like made me cry a bunch, and then for my mid-year freak out, of course I was crying talking about it. So yeah, I think that is one of my new favorites, but old favorite is The Shining.
So what kind of horror is Blackwater? Is it, you said it's like a family saga, but is it like paranormal, or is it possession, or?
I think it leans more paranormal.
Okay.
But it also has like monster vibes in it a bit.
Ooh,
Without
okay.
giving too much away. Like you learn some stuff about the this woman, I guess, in it. And she comes from she's not fully human, I guess.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm so picky with my horror. That's why I have to ask so many questions, because like I get scared so easily, which is the point of horror, right? So
yeah. I think there is a lot of like family drama in Blackwater, and the people might not even really consider it horror, but there are like straight up like ghost supernatural stuff happening in it too.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's like, oh, this is like a family drama, a Southern family drama. I'm really into it. And then you're like, oh, I'm scared right now.
But you said
it's
you
great.
cried a couple times or got close to crying, so it sounds like that family drama gets kind of emotional.
Yes.
Get, like,
The
connected
ending
to
of
the
it
characters.
is very powerful. Yeah, I was very connected, and yeah, I cried like a ton at the end, and I was like, why am I crying?
Okay, well now I don't think you cry a lot in books, right? I don't think you've often said that. So that makes me really intrigued too. I might have to look into this one. Okay, so question number 4. What horror trope do you think you would excel in as the hero? So horror tropes, we just kind of talked about a couple: paranormal, haunted house, vampires, werewolves, virus, cannibals, slasher. What do you think that you would excel in as the hero?
I probably slasher, since I read the most of, and I'm a big Scream nerd too. So I feel like I know all the roles. I've seen all the movies. I've seen the new one. Like, I think I can. I think I would survive. I think I'd be a final girl in a slasher.
Is this like, do you run really fast, or do you have like good hiding place, or what would your strategy be? Would you try to fight with a slasher person?
Yes. Yeah, I would probably try to fight, or like play the same game or something. Like, get on the level.
Outsmart them?
Yes. Yes. I would. I would be like calling too. So
I can
those
picture
ghost face.
you turning into the villain. Like, they'd come after you, and then you'd be like, haha, I'm gonna be your worst nightmare now.
Yes. It's like, doesn't this person know I have books to read? I don't have time for this. Like
Oh, you also have good odds for surviving a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. We Alex and I, my boyfriend, we have a plan that in case it happens. So we have like step by step. Like, it's not written down, it's just like up here. So
But then is there a secret plan that like you'd actually sacrifice him so you can get away, right? Like, does he know the real
yes.
plan?
No, he doesn't.
That's good. It's good to have secrets.
Got me.
Looks like you're convincing some others for Blackwater too.
It's so good. Yeah, McDowell is one of my favorite authors. Like, I've discovered the past couple of years while reading horror. I think I don't think he's like underrated or anything. I just think people are like, I was so surprised I never heard of him before BookTube, because he like wrote Nightmare Before Christmas and
Oh,
Beetlejuice, like the screenplays and stuff. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that.
you're looking at a face that just found this out just now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and he tried to sell, I think one of his books too, his first book, The Amulet, he tried to sell as a screenplay, but it's like, it's rough. It is like a rough book, and it's like, I could not see that even being a movie in the 70s. So
Like, just too gory and violent, or rough as in like poorly written, or
oh, it's just violent. Like, there's
oh.
some crazy stuff that happens in it. Like, a whole family is done at the beginning, like murked at the beginning. Yeah, it's like a cursed object book.
Oh, okay. Probably I won't be picking that one up, but Blackwater seems, I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Yeah, Luna's Library. It sounds good as long as you're far away from Katrina, because you don't know if you will be sacrificed. So it's important to know. Okay, question number 5. What is the genre and subgenre you are least likely to read?
That's probably romance. Like, I've tried to read romance books, and I just get very bored. Even like thrillers with romance in it, like oh, that Alyssa, I'm totally blanking on it now. I can't even think of it, but there's a romance like subplot in it, and I was like, I'm so bored, but I'm also still interested in where this is going, but I like I can't pay attention, like I kept zoning out and stuff. So yeah, romance is tough for me. Like sometimes there'll be like there is romance in Blackwater. There is like an actual romance in it, and that didn't bore me because there's like other stuff going on. But yeah, romance is it just I haven't found my niche yet, is what I always say.
What about like dark romance?
I don't think I've read. Oh, you know what? I think I've tried to read a Katie Roberts. But is it Kate Roberts?
Katie Robert, yeah, that's I don't know if that's dark necessarily, super spicy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I
So
have
that
tried
wasn't
to
your
read
thing?
some. It's like the Persephone retelling
Yes.
one, Touch of
Yeah.
Darkness. Yeah, I tried to do that one and I DNF'd it. I was like, I think it just needs to be a little bit shorter. I don't know. And then I liked it. But I have been reading some like Monster Smut. I read Laugh, Love, Lich by Kate Pryor this week. And I was like, this is funny. This is fun. Or Jack by Layla Faye. I actually liked that. I was like, but it's very short stuff and it's like funny. It's like silliness and goofiness. It's nothing serious or anything. So I was like, oh, okay, I enjoy these because they're very short and kind of goofy and silly, while being like, I don't know, scary, I guess, in a way, but not.
Yeah.
Like the Lich one, I was
sense.
kind of scared of for a second. I was like, oh no, I would run if I wouldn't be into that, but okay.
Yeah, I was thinking of like some like serial killer romances maybe you'd enjoy because you like the slashers. Or there's one, I haven't read it, but it's called Still Beating. And I think it's these two people are kidnapped together and they're like held captive and they fall in love when they're in this like captive situation. It's supposed to be really dark. I didn't know if either of those would appeal like on the darker side, but
Oh, I'll have to check those out. Still Beating?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always
know,
down to try.
I know, but you know what you like, right? And there's no need to like force yourself for something that you don't think you'll enjoy. But and especially like you were saying, like you're not interested in the subplot of romance when it's in other books like thrillers and horror. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a romance in Mayfly where I was like kind of checked out during, and I know a lot of people like that romance. Yeah, I was like, but it comes back around at the end, and I was like, oh, I get why that was there. But while it was happening, I was like, why is she talking to this guy? I was like, I don't care if he's a hockey player, but like people went nuts over that romance part, and they were like, oh, this is awesome. And I was like, I could care less about this. I'm all about Maeve, but like the romance part, I was like, I'm checking out.
Well, and it kind of skews the priorities, right? Because in horror, there's something really serious going on, but hey, this guy's really hot. I want to go talk to him. It's like, no, focus on what's going on. Like, this is why you don't survive because your hormones are out of control. So, yeah, sometimes the romance subplot can be just like really out of place.
Yeah.
And I like romance, so.
I know people that do like romance usually didn't like the romance in Mayfly, which I think is interesting. I'm like, people who don't usually like romance like that romance. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good to know. Hi.
Hey, Crystal.
Oh, see, I'm selling Luna's Library on some dark romance too.
Yeah, I have seen this cover around, I feel like, Bookstagram recently, and people really like it.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. I've heard that it's really dark, and the premise sounds really intriguing. So,
I could read it this month.
There you go, adding to your TBR. Yes. What is a book that scared you the most? You have nerves of steel with all this horror that you read. So if it scares Katrina Brown, you know it is a horror book worth checking out.
I think definitely The Shining scared me when I read it the first time. Even the second time, at the second go around, I reread it this past winter, and I did the audio, and I happened to be at work like when nobody was around, like before we opened or something, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a little nervous right now." Like, but I definitely had all the lights on when I was reading The Shining the first time, and
Mhm.
Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game scared me so bad when I read it the first time. Like the part when she wakes up and she realizes, like, I'm not completely alone here. Like that part scared me so bad. I like had every light on in my apartment.
That is on my short list TBR. I haven't read it yet. Because like home invasion is my least favorite trope, and this from like the summary, it seems like it has an element of that. And so I'm like, oh, I have to be in a good, happy place to be that scared.
It's not your typical home invasion, I will say that. It's not
Okay.
like The Strangers or anything. It's like, um, it's just like a very creepy situation. And she's already in a bad situation, and she has to get out of this certain situation, and there's like just an added other level to it that is just like so uncomfortable and nerve-wracking. And yeah, it's good book, but I was like, I am very uncomfortable and scared.
Literally, oh great, Carol Marie, you're not making this better. This is gonna like fall off my TBR now. I'm gonna be too much of a chicken to read it. Does
Yeah.
Katrina get scared? I don't know. So do you think The Shining and Gerald's Game are your answer for the scariest book you've read?
I think so. I did read Darcy Coates' books when I first started reading Coates' books. I read them in the dark, and they kind of scared me like a little bit. Like, and those are more cozy, spooky books. But I would be in pitch black reading it, so I'd be like, "Oh no, what's in that corner over there?" So like, I think that that's like that like has added another level to it because like for Summerween, it's always like read a book in the dark, and like I started doing that, and I'm like, now I can't get enough of that. I love reading on my Kindle in the dark. And Anaya Alburn books too are usually on KU, and those are very scary to read in the dark. Like Seed, when I was reading that one, I was like, wait a second, is there something in the corner over there? Like it just makes you double check. Like if you get up to go to the bathroom or something, you're like, hold up, let me turn on all the lights actually for a second. So
So you
I
take
would
it
say I still get scared. Yeah.
yeah, you take it to another level reading these books in the dark. I think some I could. It just depends on what the trope is. A haunted house, reading that in the dark? No. I can't do that. Definitely. And actually I'm trying to think of one that I could, but definitely not a haunted house. Hello, Michelle's Library. Michelle was a guest on the Biblio Files for episode 3, I believe. Had some fun questions there. Dean Koontz intensity, that home invasion type of style. That one had me on edge. Okay, well then I will be staying away from that kind of intensity because that's freaks me
That's such a
out.
funny name for a book. Intensity. Like it's a roller coaster or something.
I know, it's right there in the title, like what to expect. Then you have high expectations, right? Because like if you're bored, you're like, womp womp.
I read two Kuntz books, early Kuntz books this week, and they were very weird. And yeah, not what I expected, I feel like.
Were they your first
Like,
ones from him?
no, I read Dragon Tears from him, which was more of like a procedural like book,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, a police procedural. This was The Mask and Fun House. And Fun House, I think, is a novelization of a horror movie that I've never seen, but I've heard it's bad from my friend Andrew, who's like a big film buff. And I was like, this is just so zany. I don't know. Like, it starts off with a demonic baby, and like the mom doesn't like it or whatever. Like, it's very weird. It's like it was insane. I was like, this is so crazy. And like the language used in this book, I like never heard anybody talk like one of the girls in the book. I was like, nobody has ever talked like this on the face of the earth. Like, what is happening? Like, it was very goofy and zany and weird, and it didn't feel like a Kuntz book. I just didn't expect him to write like that. I don't know. Very pulpy. I guess that's the right word.
Okay, good description. I haven't read anything by him, so I mean, he has tons of books, though. I probably see his books more frequently than I do Stephen King, so I don't know who's written more at this point.
Oh, that would be a good thing to know. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's because I know Stephen King is like 68 or I don't know. I feel like he's almost at 70 or something, or over 70. And I only know that because I listened to a Stephen King podcast and I heard that fact recently. So I wouldn't know off the top of my head. But yeah, Kuntz, I would be interested to look that up. I might look that up afterwards.
I know, me too. We're all going to be Googling it, finding out who has more books published. Well, let's go to question number 7. What is a book on your TBR that you are most intimidated by?
I had Little Life forever. I think I unhauled it actually, but that was on my TBR so long, and I just like gave up. So I guess that's the ultimate intimidator there. I was like, I just won't ever read it. And yeah, right now though, I don't think there's anything super intimidating. I have my cart here. Oh, this one probably very intimidating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that's a pretty long series, right?
Yes, and this is so dense too. And I was intimidated by this when I read fantasy. I was like, so I still have it though, thinking I'm going to read it because I know it's dark. So I don't know.
How long has that been on your TBR though?
Oh, for like 3 years at least.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Well, and then with A Little Life, what made you interested in reading it in the first place? Just kind of like the hype, everyone talking about it, or was there something about it that intrigued you?
I think it was the hype for sure, because I think like Gabby did a vlog with it, and some other booktubers did the vlog with it, and everybody was crying, and I was like, okay, like I don't cry too much, so we'll see. And then I heard it was like bad from some people that I met on BookTube or like Bookstagram, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just unhaul it then.
Yeah, that book surprises me because that seems like a different style than what you typically read.
Yeah,
I read
it's
it.
like lit.
Yeah, it's just torture porn. Like it's and not in a horror way, but in like emotional torture. But I didn't like it. I was on that second camp of people that didn't like it that you were talking about. So I don't think you missed much by unhauling it.
I have heard funny things about the cover though. I do hear it's not like a sad guy. He's actually like it was a photograph of him in a good moment. Like in an excited moment. Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to unsee that now. That's all I'm gonna think about.
I know. I heard that recently, or yeah, like on Spritz or something. Somebody said it in the chat and I was like, what?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Ruin that cover for me.
Sorry.
Ruined it for Luna's library now too. She's gonna see that when she looks at the cover. All right. What is your least favorite thing in books?
I hate like stereotype stuff. Like when there's stereotypical stuff in it. Which it's funny because I do like Stephen King, but Stephen King loves to do like stereotypes and especially like early Stephen King. So yeah, but now if I read like a new book that has like any form of stereotypes or something, I get really mad about it. Like, what is a book recently? I guess Gothic by Philip Fracassi. I feel like it was trying to be like a paperback from hell, and be like really mean about women or to women, or have the main character be mean to women for no reason. And I was just like, I don't like that. Like, you don't need to, that's not vintage. Like, that's not a vintage book. Like, I don't go into vintage books like, oh boy, there's going to be a bunch of horrible stereotypes in this or horrible tropes. Like, no, they're not like that. Like, uh some are, but not like the majority of them, or I would say that I've read, don't have those things in it. So I'd say, yeah, that takes me out of the story, and it like makes me all mad and stuff. So yeah, I don't like seeing that in like recent and newer books and recent books, unless they're really going for it, which is usually an extreme horror, which is like a whole other thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, that's typical. That's going to be typical in something like that. So
What about the argument? And I don't know if authors make this argument or if like fans make this argument, but I've heard it said that, you know, the stereotypes and everything are there to make you hate that character. Like they're there to make that character like the villain or unlikable. Is that something where you're more accepting of it, or it still just takes you too much out of the story?
I think nowadays you don't really, there's other ways to do it. Like, that just means you're a lazy writer. Like, if you can't think of something else like to do in this situation, or like how to frame this character, like
Yeah.
that's lazy writing. So that just points out like, hey, this isn't a, you're not a good writer. Like, I kind of felt that way with Hidden Pictures a little bit. I know that's like a
Oh,
popular,
okay.
or was a popular book too. Like,
Mhm.
the way that book ended, or like some stuff that happened, and it's been a minute since I read it. I think I read it when it came out, but I was like, oh well, this is just like kind of lazy, like honestly. Like this is lazy writing. There could have been like so much more, I feel like, could have happened, or like it could have unfolded differently than the way it did. And also it being things being similar to true crime too, like kind of irk me a little bit too. And that story is similar to a true crime case that's very famous. And In the Dark Woods, I read recently, and I was like, or a couple months ago, and I was like, this is exactly like this famous case. Like, that just took me totally out of it. It's like,
Yeah.
there's a way to do it without overdoing it. Like, I've read books where they are inspired by something, and they don't like go into it that deep. Like, but if you're just copying something, and putting like a little bit of a twist on it, it's like, come on, you can do better than that.
It's like
Like,
true crime fan fiction. Like,
yeah, that does bother me too. Um, and I totally forgot about that. Like, that, when that happens, it bothers me in books. So
that's a good one though. I think that's a good point, and I've never thought about that before. You know, just copying real true crime cases and not getting too creative with it, but still profiting off that situation.
yeah, it's like, that's just icky. I think I said that in my review of in the Dark Woods. I was like, that's just a little icky for me. Like, I don't like how close I was.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I agree with you on that one. What is a book that surprised you the most about how much you enjoyed it? So something you enjoyed more than you thought you would.
Um, I know I had an answer. I do have a stack of books here that I just pulled that I got when I looked at it.
There's a whole
It
bunch of
might.
options.
I know. Um, I let's see. It might be the Cotton Candy Massacre. I was kind of surprised by this because it is like an extreme horror book, which are very hit or miss. It's like it can be a 2-star, it can be a 5-star, like who knows. And yeah, I did really enjoy this. It's more of like a slasher, but it's also like something else is going on in this carnival, like supernatural wise, that ends up happening. There's like body horror in it, and there's like slasher vibes, carnival vibes, 80s vibes, 80s horror movie vibes, and yeah, there is like two best friends in this too, and I liked the friendship in it, and like yeah, it was like all the things. I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. But yeah, I would say Cotton Candy Massacre definitely surprised me, and the sequel is out now as well, part toots.
Have you read it yet, or you still have to read it?
I still have to read it. The author was very nice and sent me a copy of it, so I still have to read it. I think I'm going to save it though for September. But
Okay.
yeah, I'd say this one surprised me. Let's see, what else do I have here? I did pull Lone Woman, because this one, I don't know why this one surprised me so much, because I guess I was seeing so many mixed reviews about it. I was like, oh, I might not like it. And Victor Laval books are usually 4 stars for me, but this one just like blew it away. I was like, this is amazing.
What is it about? I don't know if I've heard that one before.
It is about a woman who is moving from Texas. Oh, during the pioneer times. No, during like homestead times. She's moving from Texas to Montana to get a plot of land that the government was giving out, and they were giving it out to women, which is like a big deal, or even like African American women as well. And she wanted her plot of land to grow food on and stuff, like to homestead. And she ends up going, but she has this big chest she's carrying with her, and there's something in it.
Ooh.
And that's all I can say. I know one of my friends DM'd me when I was like, oh my God, I love this book. She was like, but what was in there? And I was like, do you really want to know? Are you going to read it? He's like,
yeah, you have to make her read it. You can't tell her.
Yeah. But I think, Victor Laval definitely did his research, I feel like, with this one, because there's like a bunch of like folklore stuff in it, with like family stuff and like historical stuff that I thought just all kind of meshed really well in this really interesting story, and like a cool character. And yeah, I really like the Ballad of Black Tom too. That was like my first book by his. I really like that because it's cosmic. And I was like, oh, this is horror. Yeah, but I haven't given one of his books 5 stars in a while. So I was very surprised by that one.
Oh, awesome. Good answers. Making everybody interested to know what's in the box. Well, Luna's Library, you're gonna have to read it. You're gonna have to read Lone Woman and find out. What do books need more of?
I think there needs to be, of course, more like diverse authors, diverse characters in books, from race to sexuality. I'm always looking for like more diverse stuff, or diverse reading, and women too, more women authors always, and women characters, I think, are for the win for 2023.
That's a good answer. And I didn't prep you for this question because I didn't know that answer, but is there a book that comes to mind that does diversity really well, that has really good representation in your opinion?
That is a good question. I feel like there's been a couple. I have to probably look at my shelves for a second. I think this year that I've read, maybe like Pinata, I think did really well.
Okay.
But that's also own voices, so that one did really well. And then The Spite House by Johnny Compton, I think they did really well with that one. And I always love Stephen Graham Jones, so like Don't Fear the Reaper, like of course this is fantastic. So I'm all about that as if for women authors, I just read Delicate Condition by Danielle Barley. Her last name is, I'm missing it, but it was a great like modern take on like Rosemary's Baby. And I think the new season of American Horror Story is going to be based off of it, which is really interesting because they like teamed up to do that. But her author's note, I was like, whoa, this is like powerful, like about like women's like reproductive stuff or right now, I guess. Like I was like, oh wow, this is great. I love it.
Those are some good recommendations. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I definitely agree. I agree with you. It's like, with the diversity, you kind of see the same types of people in every story. And so it kind of sticks out when you see someone who's different. So I would definitely agree with you on that one. More diversity in books.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like you get like, there's new horrors there too, right? Like there's definitely like different levels like of horror for, an African American than like a white person living in the suburbs. Like it's going to be like there's a whole other level there. That's why I like horror so much. It's like I feel like it does a little bit more than like there's a lot more social commentary with horror. It is like a direct reflection of society for the most part, and which can be scary. So if you don't want to if you're reading to completely like escape, horror might not be the thing, especially like heavy social commentary horror.
I think if like I don't know, there's that whole debate. If you're reading horror to escape, maybe you should talk to someone because a lot of these like slashers and, violence, if that's your outlet. But, with the social commentary and the different groups of people unlocking different fears, a book that we've talked about a couple times, I think, that really exemplifies that is Mary, about a 60-year-old woman going through menopause. It just gets a little bit questionable since the book's written by a man. But that does unlock kind of a different demographic of horror in her case. So
yeah, and I think he did his research, Nate Cassidy. So I think he was like, oh, I get it. Like I'm writing this character, and I'm not this character. So yeah, Mary's such a good book.
His author's note was really good, explaining his perspective on that. I enjoyed that, but that's a great example of diversity, a different demographic than you typically see, still having a different element of fear to it and the social commentary.
So. Yeah, I like that book. That was one of my favorite books of 2022 because it just felt like, you don't get that point of view very often, and then when you do, you're like, I can't get enough. Like I need more of Mary. Like why?
Yeah. Oh, Alicia, you're gonna love it. I hope you do. I read it earlier this year, and I agree with Katrina. It was one of my favorite books of the year so far. It was amazing. It was a wild ride. It went off the deep end a little bit, but in the best way.
Yes. I feel like the best part of that book, you can't even tell, like, you can't say what it is. I know I've seen it on recommendations and stuff before, but I'm like, oh, that like kind of takes the fun out of it. Like out of the ride of Mary is knowing like one of the big tropes in it or subgenres of it. It's like that takes out the fun because I had no idea.
Yeah, and that's the thing when talking about tropes, like you can't really, they are kind of spoilery, and especially with horror a lot of times, right? So if you're talking about a haunted house situation, you can really classify that as, okay, something creepy is going on in the house. Is it home invasion? Is it ghosts? Is it possession? Is it monsters? So if you talk about the trope of monsters or home invasion, you kind of spoil it. And it's like, no, part of the fun is something creepy is going on, but you don't know what it is. And you're reading to figure it out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, Kat, I think we might be selling you on Mary. I see everybody's telling you Nat Cassidy's the author. Hopefully you pick it up.
I think you would like that, Kat.
And Secrets reads, yes, stop putting it off. Pick it up. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it is kind of like a ambiguous name, right? But at the end, Nat Cassidy writes an author's note and explains, the argument a lot of us talk about, who has the right to tell a story. And he talks about that in his perspective and why he felt he could write this story. And as Katrina said, did a lot of research on it, and it was done really well. So hopefully that won't stop you from reading Mary. And then it's a spoilery author's note, so read it at the end, but really great book. I think I'm going to reread it in December, actually. I'm itching to read it again.
Yeah, that book got me like all revved up too. I was like, yeah, like the monster's misogyny. Like I was like, oh yeah, like I was feeling it. I was like so into it for like a whole month. I wouldn't shut up about it. Oh, and I met the author. I met Nate Cassidy, and I was just like, oh, I really love this book, da da da. And I was like, oh, but I didn't like that song in it because it got stuck in my head. And he was like, oh, well, I'm so sorry. Like, he was so sarcastic about it. He was like, I'm just kidding. He's like, no, my wife said the same thing. So.
And I think he has a new release out, too. Or, like, one coming up, right?
The Nestling, I think. Or Nestlings. And I think it's about New York City creature feature. I don't know. I think I read the synopsis, and it gave me creature feature vibes. So.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to read more by him. Do you reread horror? Like, is the fun for you in like the first read when you don't know what's going to happen? Can you still enjoy a reread of horror?
I rarely reread. I did reread The Grown Up back in May for the readathon that I co-hosted, and I had a lot of fun with it, but I feel like that's not necessarily a horror book. I think that's just like a really fun satire book of like turn of the screw, like in 60 pages. And I had a lot of fun. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how funny this book is and like how great it is with like a little bit of horror elements in it while being funny. I did reread The Shining. I reread, I'm trying to think if I reread something kind of recently. I don't think so. I don't reread a ton. But I feel like I still got scared with The Shining when I reread it, but it was like years in between it. So
okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see myself rereading Mary anytime soon or anything. But yeah, maybe I'll do a vlog where it's like, oh, it was 5 stars when I first read it. Let's see if I reread it or something and it's still 5 stars. I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah, because I think the anticipation is like one experience. You don't know what's going to happen. But on the reread, you know what's going to happen, so you can just enjoy all the signs that you maybe missed the first time, or you kind of get that superior feeling to the main character, like, you're so dumb. How can you not see what's going on here? It's right there in your face.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I bet there's a bunch of like foreshadowing in Mary too that like I probably missed like before she even gets to where that book goes, because like that's just a crazy book.
And I was like, towards the end, like the last third, I was just reading so fast because I wanted to see what was going to happen, that I'm sure I missed a lot of stuff because I was just so into the plot that I wanted to know what was going to happen. So yeah, I don't know. I don't reread a lot either, but I want to start, 'cause sometimes I'll finish a book and I'm like, like with Mary, oh, wow, I read through that so fast to see what was going to happen next. I need to like take my time and soak it in. So I need to start rereading more. But there's so many to read.
There's so many to read. Yeah, that's the whole thing. The Mary's very long too, and I think I read it physically. I read it physically as well, and I was like hooked. I was like, I couldn't stop reading. So that's when you know it's like really good.
Yes. Okay, now that we've convinced everybody to read Mary, are you ready for the 5 would you rather questions?
Oh, I'm scared.
You heard it here, folks. Katrina Brown, the queen of horror, is scared. Okay, would you rather, number 1, keeping it kind of easy, would you rather read a paranormal horror or a realistic horror?
I think paranormal horror. I think just because it's like really fun. It can be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I like the paranormal. I like the creativity of the paranormal. Would you rather, number 2, would you rather only read books in your favorite subgenre the rest of your life, or never read anything other than that subgenre the rest of your life? So you can only read, I think you said earlier when I asked what your favorite subgenre was, you said cosmic, right? You said slashers was your most frequent, but cosmic is your favorite. So if you could only read cosmic the rest of your life and no other variety, or you can read whatever you want, but never read a cosmic horror again.
That's so tough because I feel like if I only read cosmic for the rest of my life, I would just like kind of go crazy or be even more crazy. I would say, well, I don't know. That's really tough.
See, and I picked this one for you because I knew it would be tough because I feel like you read a good mix of things. A good, like, primarily horror, but even like a good mixture within horror, or like in my videos, if I'm talking about a different book and you mentioned that you've read it, I'm like, wow, she read this? So I feel like you read a good variety. So I knew this would be a tough question for you.
I guess I would just have to give up on cosmic, I guess. Because there's only so much. Yeah.
It's true.
There's only so much cosmic. Like, I would just end up reading like 2 books, I feel like. No. There's more than 2 books.
And more is published all the time.
True.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. Okay, well, the next one's a little bit easier, maybe. Would you rather spend the night in a graveyard or in an old abandoned house?
I feel like a graveyard, because there would be less people interested. I feel like kids are really interested in abandoned houses more than graveyards, and they're just like, let's go to this abandoned house. Like, I don't know. That's what I did when I was a kid. That's what my little brother did too. So
I have to admit, my first reaction when you said there's less people in a graveyard than an abandoned house, I was like,
oh, what? Yeah. People like to, get into things, I guess, like abandoned thing, be where they're not supposed to be. But like a graveyard is like,
too, right? I guess more open space in the graveyard. Is one scarier than the other to you?
I think the abandoned house would be scarier because there's like hiding places and stuff for things.
Probably more sounds, like the creaking of the house. I don't want to stay the night either. I want to go to the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, I would never. That might be a little scary too sometimes.
Okay, so when you're reading, would you rather read a dual timeline or a consecutive timeline?
I actually like a straight on timeline is fine. Like, I know thrillers love the dual timelines and different now then and stuff. I'm like, I'm okay with just being straight on one. But I don't mind either, honestly. But sometimes the now and then stuff like gives me whiplash. Sometimes like The Counselors, I read that last month and I was like, every chapter was like now, then, and I was like, it's only been a year. What's going on?
And then it like takes you out of the story sometimes too, because they do it so often and you're like kind of on a roll in this like storyline and then you're thrown backwards in time. And yeah.
Yes, Christine,
graveyard less likely to be haunted. I don't know about that. I don't know. There's lots of death and deadness. Zombie uprising. That is a fair point. see the logic. But she has a zombie plan. So the zombie uprising is, you know, she's prepared.
Yeah, and it depends on like what type of zombie we're talking about too. So if it's like Walking Dead zombies, they didn't come back. Or I don't think George Romero's did either. They just happened to be walking around there. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
But they're usually slow, right? Zombie, like you can outrun a zombie. They're pretty slow. So
yeah,
you have good shoes. Okay, so would you rather number 5? So you have done 2 vlogs on your channel. They're 2 of my favorites, 2 of my favorite reading vlogs that you've done. And so I'm going to make you choose. You've done a scary doll vlog and a scary clown vlog. So which one do you want to be chased by? Speaking of running from zombies, right? Let's assume the doll and the clown, they're fast. They're faster than a zombie.
I would say probably a scary clown. No. Scary doll. I changed my answer. Because like a clown could be like human size, but a doll I feel like wouldn't be super fast. I don't know.
Oh, Chucky was fast, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a little fast, but he also was like he was a serial killer, so he had, like,
these are
serial killer.
Happy dolls or clowns. They're scary.
Yeah, kick that doll. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I feel like I would just like drop kick it or something. But a clown would be a little bit more difficult to outrun or fight. So
that's fair. I like your logic. I was wondering what logic you were going to use to answer this question. I was writing this up and I was like, gosh, I can't pick. I don't know. I don't know what I would pick.
I really hope one of these does happen to me one day in my life. A scary doll chasing me.
Wait, you hope it does happen to you?
Card. Yeah. I think that'd be fun.
That would be a great Christmas card. I really like that idea. Well, that concludes our Biblio Files episode 5 with Katrina Brown. Thank you so much for answering all these hard-hitting questions. It was a lot of fun to talk about horror and reading with you.
Thanks for having me.
And if you have not already subscribed to Katrina Brown, please be sure that you do. She has a lot of really fun themed videos. We talked about the scary clown and the scary doll video. There was a carnival one, I think. Also, just really...
There will be a carnival one.
Oh, there will be. Oh, I thought there was one.
In September.
I thought the clown, the cotton candy, the slasher one you were talking about? I thought that was
it was like
carnival vlog.
Yeah, it was like clowns. I think it was more clown focused.
Oh, that was the clown one. Okay.
But I mean, same thing.
Same thing. They're at the carnival.
Same thing.
Yeah, I love all the different themes and how you find different horror books to fit each theme. It's so creative and fun. And oh my gosh, all the Halloween decor shopping that you're doing right now is, I cannot tell you how many times you personally have sent me out shopping to find stuff. Like Home Goods recognizes me now. And yeah, so love all the stuff on your channel. So if you're not subscribed,
the best time of year. Yeah.
It is. It's a season. It's a season. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the live or watching the replay of this. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.